Hey everyone, my name's Clint. Ryan and I today are going to talk through a project that we've been working on for the past about 6 months called Ditto. And we're going to talk more than just about software. We're going to talk about what it means to actually launch a venture, launch a business. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today is we're going to go back to the beginning of this project and show you kind of from the beginning vision into the discovery, how we decided where to zoom, the product principles that we applied or set along the way. We're going to talk a little bit about the branding, the UX, UI, some prototypes. We'll talk about our testing loops within all of that. And then we'll talk about the business model, and then we'll get to kind of where we are today, which is close to launch. Again, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Dribble at Headway.io. That are our handles there. So, Ryan.
Everyone, Ryan Hatch. Happy to be here today. Glad that you could all join. We're going to be covering today before we get into it, what I want you to be listening to is the rapid feedback that Clint and I were doing and our team was doing with customers. We all have ideas for solutions. The problem is what we think will work often doesn't actually work in reality. So to be successful, what we need to do is we need to learn as fast as possible because we're going to be wrong. And the question then is, how fast can we learn what the right thing is? So here's a visual of our learning loop. It's a process we use daily here at Headway. But during the talk, what I want you to be listening for is how many times we are looping through and getting feedback and getting learning and interfacing with customers and getting out of the building.
Yeah, so with that, let's go back to the beginning for this project. So, September 2020, founder came to us and had this vision that led to a key question, which was, how might we help couples better their relationship? And that kicked us off into this discovery mode. And we spent a couple weeks kind of recruiting and talking with couples of all ages, from different backgrounds in different seasons of life. Separately, some of them we talked to separately. Some of them, they were together, and it was really cool to kind of watch them kind of interact. And we're learning just so much about them in this time. And we're asking these two questions, like, what problems are you struggling with? And what behaviors have you used in your relationships to improve your relationships?
Yeah, I mean, these interviews were so powerful and so foundational to everything we've done over the past 5 or 6 months. So the initial just first couple weeks is so critical. It's so fascinating in these interviews, Clint, how these couples would actually open up to us. You think like, well, people, they're not going to open up to me. Actually, they let us into the most private aspects of their lives. It's really incredible, but from that came this really deep learning. You could even see in the interviews how the couples initially were like kind of sitting separately and kind of like this, shoulder to shoulder. But by the end of the conversation, as we're talking about their relationship and how they become closer and how they've worked through their struggles, like their arms are around each other and like, it's really powerful stuff, this discovery. So when we talk about how do we go about that, let's go back to the other slide. Okay. How do we go about that? In order to help couples that are struggling, what we first needed to do in discovery was actually fast forward and talk to couples that had already worked on their relationship, that had already bettered their relationship. And what we did was we rewound those stories into what did you first start struggling? Tell us about that. What did that feel like in the house? How did that make you? How did that manifest itself in your relationship? And then what are all those things, that arc? What are all those things that you guys tried? What worked and didn't work? And through all of that, we got a ton of insight into what really helps couples better their relationships. So the question was, we have so many conversations and all of them are so different. Like Clint was saying, so many different backgrounds. You have people that are married for a long time, people that are that are engaged, that aren't married, and how do you, from all these different types of struggles, how do we make sense of that, right? The stories are all so different. So we started to do pattern matching. We're bringing all of our different cards together, trying to assimilate, trying to find where's the meaning here, where are the commonalities, and that leads us to this synthesis. And this is really where it all starts to come together, where all of our discovery and all those stories start to merge into this mental model for, this is what couples are really trying to achieve. Here's their desired state. Here's where they're struggling, and here's what actually works. And so the question for us was, there were so many opportunities that we'd found in our discovery work. The question is, hey, which opportunity are we going to go chase? We actually evaluated, Clint, going very different paths. Where do we want to play in the market? And we use this criteria to help us evaluate and select an opportunity for where we wanted to play. Where we ended up with this persona of Bethany. Bethany's actually a real person. We're not using fake names here. We're not a fan of that. I think staying grounded in real people. This is Bethany's just one, but she represents so many more couples and so many more women that we encountered that we decided to target Bethany as a persona. And you can see here what we're doing is, and you'll see this theme throughout the whole talk today, is interview, learn, repeat. And we're going to be doing this cycle over and over and over. And we're doing that the whole time in discovery. So principles, coming out of that, behind every great company, there are core principles that guide product decisions. And what we came up with 3 out of all of our interviews in the founder's vision. We came up with 3 product principles to help guide our decision making. And one was it's more about ownership in a relationship and less about fixing my partner, right? It's more about what can I do and not about blame. Another one is this isn't going to be a quick fix. This is an investment over time. So we're not going to try to fix things in 3 seconds. Like, this is an investment. It's also more about communication and talking and listening to each other and understanding each other, and less about who's right and who's wrong. In all of this discovery work, the other great bonus is that Clint, we could have never done what we're doing without like this deep grounding in these customer stories. And what that provides is like excellent marketing copy. Like, the only reason we can write and do all of this thing and speak in a way that resonates is because we've been grounded in these great stories. Then they actually write the marketing copy for us.
Yeah, and I think, from there, it's kind of taking all of those great interviews we had all these stories, we had all of these, just a wealth of knowledge. And we're getting, like Ryan, you had mentioned there, we're getting all these like little copy bits. We're getting to now see a broader picture of what this product could be. And so we went into this phase kind of like parallel with the end of that kind of discovery, or in with that discovery process of naming this thing. We started to kind of, as a team, throw down some of our names, things that came up, and they were things that were based off of what some of our couples were saying. They were based off of just some ideas that we had. We kind of just riffed on, and we kind of narrowed that down to like our top 3, and we kind of settled on that for a bit, and we came back and we decided on
and just to mention, Ditto. Clint, like in that phase, like the founder had already come with a different name. And then after the interviews, we were able to go back and say, actually, like, we need to rename. And that's what led us to that. That's right.
So moving into kind of that next phase, we started to now create something out of that. We started to sketch, started to work through some of these ideas in Illustrator, started to really try and like visualize what Ditto could be. And so this is kind of a view of those, kind of some of those initial concepts. So we're thinking about placement, we're thinking about branding, we're thinking about our couples, thinking about potentially how could that app, or how this could be used as a product going forward. And so we continued on that process for a couple of weeks, and then we finally landed on Ditto as the name, at Ditto branding here. And as you can see, everything kind of started to come together. So now we had some kind of a North Star, so to speak, to kind of work with as far as like how this thing would look and feel. Then we moved into solutioning, and this is where we're kind of discovering new things again from the people that we're talking with. And one of those questions that comes up is how might we reignite the spark? And so we took that question and we're looking at taking their solutions and their ideas, the couples that they had, the things that they were doing in their relationships. And we started to try and apply them to how those things could actually be the product or part of the product. And so here in Miro, you can see that we're kind of like concepting and using those little bits of info from those interviews and trying to like make something out of that, right? We're trying to kind of create something out of that. Next step was I invited the entire team, the founder, to come into Whimsical and just start to kind of riff on what we think some of those initial onboarding features would look like, or those first like things in the app that would be most important based on the conversations we had. So this gave everyone in the team an opportunity to jump into the design process and add their thoughts, and which helped me tremendously as I moved on to really the next part, which was trying to concept some things out. So this is like kind of one of my first concepts for what Ditto could look like, what it could feel like within an app space. And so this was just kind of scratching the surface at the beginning, but this was based off of so much depth of knowledge that we had acquired from all these great interviews that we had. And so next up was moving into demand testing. And again, we're keeping our couples in mind this entire time as we go through this process. We're setting up, we're thinking about how can we reach out to people and get them interested in this? Or how can we reach out and show people what they're missing in the relationship? How can we take these ideas that we're learning from all these couples that we're talking to and turn that into an acquisition channel and bring people into the app? So we kind of went through the discovery process of spinning up some landing pages. We use Webflow as a way to quickly iterate and make new versions of the website. We would test our visuals, we would test our copy. We would continue to do this with our ads as well. We're putting out Facebook ads and Pinterest ads. We're going through all of this to try and figure out what resonates with people as we go. And I want to play real quick kind of a comprehension test we're talking about. And Ryan, did you want to tee this one up?
Yeah, sure. As we're going through those different iterations that Clint's talking about, we're asking a lot of questions. We're asking, is it more imagery related? Is it more imagery, or is it more app? If it's imagery, do they think counseling? Like, there's all these different things of, hey, what's people's perception and understanding based on what we're putting in front of them? And so to do that, we also did comprehension testing, which is we'd show something to we'd show an asset that we're going to do for like an ad or a landing page. We would put that in front of someone and we'd pull it away within 5 seconds, because to be honest, that's all the time we have when you're scrolling or when you're looking at something. You have a very short window of time to make an impression. So to test that, we're doing a comprehension test, and you'll see an example of that succeeding. And then again, we didn't succeed right away. Like, this is after lots and lots of iterations to get to something like this that resonates.
Okay.
Okay, talk to me. Describe what you just saw.
I think I saw an app for couples, maybe like a therapy app or a way for people to get closer together. It said Ditto on it. It had a picture of a man kissing a woman's shoulder, which was really a sign of affection. In my opinion, you don't do that to strangers. It said an app to bring us closer together, I believe were the exact words. And in my opinion, that would be a relationship app between two people who either want to fix something in their relationship, or people who already have a strong relationship just want to make sure it's strong. Maybe people don't have the time to do things together like they used to because of kids or jobs or whatever.
Wonderful. So you can hear how, everything we're doing, we're crafting to make quick split second impressions on people. And the question is, like, when we put something in front of them, what's the other side? What do they imagine that would be? If they were to click on it, what do they imagine they would be stepping into? Which is part of the conversation. And we're trying to manage expectations so that we're walking people into something they would expect and not come into something that's surprising.
Yeah, and so from there, we're taking all of that, those interviews, and we're applying it to our landing pages, and we're applying it to the copy, we're applying it to the imagery, and we're spinning up different ones, different versions, and we're doing that again to kind of see where we're hitting on. So here you can kind of see we're playing with copy, we're playing with imagery, and we're playing it with imagery of all types. So we're kind of working with different age spheres, different walks of life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
and again, this is that. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, we heard comments like, well, if the couple's too young, well, it's not for me because that's just for like new couples. Or if they're older, then it's not for me because that's just for older couples. Like, it's striking a balance with imagery and messaging and all of that stuff actually takes a lot of loops to do it right.
Yeah. So again, design, test, repeat. We're doing that again and again, and through our process of design there.
Great. So, as you can see here, we're not just building something, we're actually launching and designing a new business, a new venture. And a big part of that is, hey, what's the business model look like? We went ahead and did financial modeling. So, the question is, given our current assumptions about conversion rates, about acquisition costs, where we can pull people in at what cost, and how far they'll get, what the drop-off rates will be as people progress through the experience. The question becomes like, how big is the market for us here? What are the different revenue models? How profitable can we be? What are the biggest levers we have to pull on that we should maybe run experiments around? What's the market cap, or what's the opportunity size for this business? And we're doing all of that with the client and modeling that out first with assumptions. And then as we actually get data to fill that in on the acquisition side and get people in here, we're taking out our assumptions and putting actuals in. And the financial model is becoming more and more reality as we validate.
Yeah, and as that's happening, and even as we're kind of doing that demand testing and all that in parallel, I'm now taking those initial concepts that we had and trying to map out not just the concepts, but actually the conversations we've had, the little things that we're learning from individuals, from couples, and we're starting to map out potential UX of the app. And so this is one of those kind of views of our wireframing, some of those UX opportunities. And again, we're keeping in mind all these stories. And this is just a small sampling of some of the folks. Our pool of people continued to grow. And as that grew, it was informing even more where we were going within the design. And so into the next part, it would be like, taking this into HiFi design, taking into prototypes. I revisited those initial concepts that we had put together, those things that we were using on our landing page and on our demand testing and our ads and all that, and coupled that with this UX and started to come up with some ideas of how this could look visually, how this could look and feel in the app. Are we operating and hitting those things that we feel like people would resonate with people? Are we creating a tool set that could answer those questions that we were being asked, that we were asking, and that the couples were also trying to search for themselves? And so along the way, I'm also creating a design system to just help this thing as it continues to evolve over time. So next up, we're moving into testing now. We've got a clickable prototype in Figma. We're starting to go through like our onboarding. We're testing that with folks. We're going through individual features. We're testing that with folks. We're just using Figma to kind of present those concepts along. And we've gone into Respondent, and we're bringing in folks who are complete strangers to the product, and we're guiding them at this kind of first stage. We're kind of guiding them through these initial prototypes and letting them experience it. So I'll play this clip really quick here. It's this one here. This is someone going through a prototype in Figma. Make sure I got that.
Just listen to the emotional reaction here to a prototype.
Can you guys hear that?
No.
Not yet. Oh, bummer. There's no sound. Let's skip that one. For some reason, it's not working. It was really good. I mean, you guys should have.
Really
You
good.
guys should have heard it. It was really good. But I will say there in that moment, it was, you know, Gail is kind of talking through. She's talking through, like, she sees the prototype for the first time, and she sees like those kind of placeholder cards we have there, which is like, when did you first meet? Where was the first date? What's the foot? And she started to cry. She started to kind of reminisce about her relationship with her, you know, with her husband. And she was like, oh, I love this. And she's like, I want to revisit those moments. I want to bring those moments back. And it was really cool to see that. But it was also validating, right? It was validating all the things that we had been kind of tapping on, of like, is this something that people want? Is this something that's going to resonate with folks? And how will it resonate with folks? And so Gail was one of those really good examples there. So, you know, moving on, we did moderated testing at the beginning, and we did some capture set. We used look back to capture some of these sessions. And so some of it was the landing page where we would just let people click through and kind of talk as they're going through it. Some of it was within these these initial prototypes in Figma. And then we would take all that feedback and we would capture it inside of Miro. And we were bringing all of those things back to kind of help inform and shape the prototypes and the design overall as we went forward.
You can see here what we're doing is, we're actually in these interviews, we're actually, like, they're experiencing the actual clickable prototypes, but what we're doing on our end is live. We're note taking live over where they are in the app, where in the journey they're getting stuck, where they're having hesitations, and how they're feeling throughout the entire experience.
Yeah. And again, those things are you know, informing the design. We're going back, we're revising those prototypes, we're testing them again, and continue just to kind of go on that loop there. So
yeah, so, you know, as we were doing demand testing, we were trying different things out. Is it more this or more that, or what if we tried it this way? And we're trying to interact with our target market in different ways. And one thing we came up with is, hey, what if we had a quiz? What if we had a relationship quiz where you could get your relationship score? You could learn more about your relationship. And so we tried this, like, just as an ad that brought them to a simple, you know, type form. We just have some questions and like this really chintzy kind of scoring to begin with, because Typeform has some built-in scoring. But we did this, and we actually got a lot of response to it. So we knew there was something there with like this quiz score, relationship score, but we needed to provide more value, right? Because the way we're providing like a score wasn't in depth enough. It didn't provide actionable recommendations. So what we had to do is, hey, we actually have to create like a real recommendation engine. We have to actually we have to help them understand what to do in their relationship and where they stand and why we feel that way. So we had to dissect, hey, what are the different aspects of a relationship? And we had to look at what makes a good relationship really healthy, what makes the relationship really unhealthy or toxic. And we sourced all of that from all the people we talked to. And when you have those two extremes of your spectrum, you can put those together, blend it, and all of a sudden you have a mental model for kind of how to assess a relationship. And so we actually went ahead and implemented that. We implemented that relationship kind of recommendation engine, if you will, in code, brought it to life with our designs, and now we had something like this. So the exact same experience from the quiz that was having a real successful run on the demand side, now we're able to pull them in and deliver a lot more value on our landing page with the quiz. And, you know, again, you can't just put something in. I want something to talk about here is, we're not just interacting in, you know, isolation where it's just data over here with like the demand testing and just stories. Like we blend those two together. And so here's another example where we're actually walking someone through the quiz. We're having them take it. We're having them read their own results and like hearing people's response to it at first, it was like, nah, it's not me, right? So it's like, okay, I got to see how they answered that wrong, or maybe we asked the question incorrectly, or maybe our recommendation engine isn't working right. So blending all of that, fixing all of those things, and when it starts to work, then you hear this amazing response, like, that's me, that's exactly how I feel. This is so accurate. And so we're going to play an example of what that sounds like right now.
So then you get a score. So it says our quiz result score for us is a 73 out of 100. So it gives you a primary area of focus, which is relationship taking a back seat. And it says life can get in the way. When couples get busy, we can put each other on the back burner. Some have described it as coasting or two ships passing in the night. So I have to say, I feel that that's pretty accurate. As far as the way that I've expressed how I feel, recently over the last couple of months, or the way that I think about how I feel all the time, I answered the questions openly and honestly, and the feedback is kind of, so far, that's what I feel. So I feel like it's very accurate, and it kind of hits home with me, or makes it easy to understand.
Yeah, and that's just one of many. We could have played so many more that we've experienced. Like when you get to this pattern of it's clicking, that's how you know, okay, we've got it. So we took what was working, and we actually decided, well, if the quiz is so valuable, let's actually put it inside the app. Let's bring that value inside to increase the value of the app itself. And so you can see that exact same quiz is now, and quiz results is in the app itself. It's another example of how we've been designing the whole time, testing and repeating the entire time. We're just going around that loop.
Yeah. So, and at this point, we're bringing the app to life beyond our Figma click-throughs. Now the app has been shipped into test flight in Google Play, and we're starting to now we're basically going back to that same thing we were doing previously, which is now we have a working app. Now let's go and test that again. So we've been spending the last couple of weeks talking with folks again, talking with couples, talking with singles, talking with counselors even, and getting their take on how what they think of Ditto and anything we can do to improve. And so we actually have a clip here I want to play of actually you're starting to see people go through the app. Now this is not moderated. Now it's just we're just sending them a link, giving them some instructions, and they're going through it on their own, but they're talking back and kind of, explaining, or kind of as they're exploring, they're describing what they're seeing and what they're feeling. And what I like about this clip is you can actually hear Alyssa smiling as she's going through the app.
The review, edit, submit, and you're completed this week's. Oh, so I guess you do it each week. That's pretty cool. I actually like this. I think this could be really, really helpful. And especially with being in a relationship for a long time, helps remember moments and the things that used to come naturally, but don't as much anymore. Develop a love habit. Let's see what this is about. Plan a road trip. Super cool. Smiling. Create a new one. Oh, cool. So you can kind of come up with your own things. All right. So let's look at cook dinner. Start this habit. And then I guess you can click on it. And then when you do it, complete it. Okay, and each time you slide, that's pretty cool. I like lists and keeping track of moments and things like that. All right, overall, I definitely have a very good first impression of this app. It's definitely something I would explore more and create a habit and routine out of with my fiance.
Yeah, so it's those things that you start to now, it just, we're, especially when we're so heads down in design and the business model and all the things that are kind of like all moving at once. We get to have these interactions, or we get to hear this feedback from perfect strangers, but it's this like, you're like, oh, this feels good because we're tracking, we're going really well with those initial ideas and those initial thoughts, and we're starting to validate all of that. It's just a really good feeling.
Yeah, it sure is. And one thing to note is, we've been doing the the clickable prototypes where it was just the designs and you saw those kind of like lines that Clint had designed, and people were able to experience the app, but it wasn't in their hand for real. So having clickable prototypes is great. It's really fast, but it's also a different experience than it is having it in your hand where you can swipe really quick, and those micro movements really start to matter on a real device. So we do have to test again to see if we miss something, and it's great when stuff starts to work. It means, hey, we've been this feedback we've been getting and integrating the whole time is actually working. So as we prepare for launch, we have a real app, but we can't interview everybody. We can't have everyone join a call with us and tell us how they're feeling and how the app's working for them. So we need other ways to measure success. And we use a Pirate metrics model to measure product market fit. Because for us, it's all about customer behavior change. It's not about features. It's not about features at all. It's about outcomes. Do they move through our funnel? Are they adopting it? Are they engaging with it? Are they willing to pay us for it? All these different pieces of the funnel is really what we're focused on from a strategy perspective. And so what we need to be able to measure this funnel. So what we started to do is bring in different analytics products that give us slices of data that we need. For instance, when we're acquiring customers, we want to know what channel they came from. Did they come from this campaign? Did they come from Facebook? Did they come from some other event we're running? All those different event sources. We want to know who's coming from where and what our conversion rates are, what our success rates are. And with this is an example of a report. So all the analytics are wired up so we can track conversion rates. And those are really important because we are in constant experimentation. Another one is, once they're in the app, what are people doing? How far they get? So we've created an adoption funnel. So as we onboard new customers, we can see how far they get, where they get stuck, where they drop off, and we're able to measure engagement as well. So in that respect, we're also measuring continuously, we're analyzing that continuously, and we're able to respond to that and run the next experiment and repeat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Clint, take it.
No, I just think now we're in this mode. We've just where we are. What you just saw is where we are today. We're preparing for launch, and it's just a really exciting place to be. I think going back and looking, kind of even as we were preparing this talk, kind of going and looking back 6 months ago, how far we've come from just this initial kind of spark of an idea to a fully fleshed out, a set of tools that resonating with people on an emotional level is pretty incredible.
Yep, and this is only the beginning, right? Because now that we have something real and it's ready, this is only the beginning. We're going to start to pull people in slowly, and see how well we're performing.
Yeah, so just to recap, we talked about launching a venture, is more than just the software involved. It's more than just the tools. It's all of these things where we're going through, where we're trying to connect with people throughout the entire process. They're informing the process. They're shaping the design, the business model. They're shaping everything that we do as we go. We're building, we're testing, we're iterating. We're doing that again and again throughout the process to get through towards the launch. And Ryan, you can take this one.
Sure. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without the amazing team that we have, the awesome dev team we have. I mean, the client's been awesome, but through all of that, we align as a team around these core principles. And these principles for how we work and why this is possible is because, one, we're chasing a vision and we're anchored in the vision, but we're flexible in how we get there. And it's really, really important because sometimes founders can get locked into one solution, and that's probably not the optimal way. So the way we're working is our team has autonomy. We can quickly make decisions. We move fast, but we have an ownership mindset, right? This is as much as it is, it's as much ours as it is the client's. We're also doing, as you saw today, rapid, continuous learning. You could never do this on a give me a fixed quote kind of thing. And how much does this one feature cost? Well, that's going to get you one loop through the experiment. Like we're doing rapid experimentation and adapting on the fly. And we're really chasing outcomes here and behavior change with customers and not focused on specific features. Again, we have that flexibility in how we get there. And we're anchoring in real stories. Clint was showing you our persona is not a fake person with a made up name with they're age 23 and they buy this for breakfast. Like it's none of that. It's real stories that we can come back to and reference. And also the decisions that we're making are all evidence based. So the feedback we're getting, the experiments we're running, all influences where we go next.
Yeah, so this is a look at, this is just kind of a quick overview of some of the tools that we used. We can link these up in the show notes for you. Most of you are probably familiar with most of these tools anyway, but these are just some of the tools that really helped us to kind of get to where we are today.
Yeah, so I mentioned this at the beginning. You can see kind of we're chasing the vision the whole time. What we think the opportunity is, the specific things we're doing, that changes, and we're looping as fast as we can around here to get as many iterations in, so that we can bridge that, we can close the gap between our theory, what we think to be true, and reality. We close that gap, and that's when everything starts to click. And it's been so exciting through this whole process to hear a woman crying to an emotional response to a prototype, and how it makes her reflect on her relationship, and how the quiz engages, and all of the experiences are starting to really work. It's an exciting thing.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, it's keeping your customers at the center of everything that you're doing as you're going forward is the key. It informs so many things. Like Ryan was saying, it keeps you from, if we talk about this kind of in the framing it of like a story, it keeps you from writing your own story. And it really is like, are you talking about a documentary, or are you talking about some like thing that you made up along the way, right? Are we talking about real life events? Or are we just kind of like cosplaying through this? And so these folks, and again, even more that aren't presented here, really did guide us and direct us as we went throughout the process.
Thanks, Ryan and Clint. That was great. We do have some questions already kind of coming in. I know we kind of answered some of them in some of the slides, but we'll go back from this first one. Jordan asks, what are the apps you're using specifically for analytics?
Sure, I can probably take that one. So if we're talking in-app analytics, is different than like web analytics on like the landing page side. Those are going to be different. I guess I'll cover since the kind of question came in during the app analytics, I'm assuming that's what he's asking. So we're using a lot of things stitched together, and they have to be integrated pretty well together to give you what you need. We're using Apps Flyer to determine kind of where people are coming from to track conversion rates. We're also using Segment.io, which is like event tracking. So anything people are doing in the app, like anything they're clicking on or interactions they're doing, those events fire. And then you can consume those events using different analytic tools like Mixpanel or Amplitude is our pipeline.
All right, awesome. This next question is from Craig, and he asked, what tools are you finding most useful? You mentioned Figma prototyping and Loopback for feedback. Anything else?
Respondent was the key to a lot of these things. We had some initial for the interviews, because with Respondent, we were able to set up, what we were looking for, who we were looking for, and bring people in to test, people from all different walks of life, from all different parts of the nation. And just that was crucial to, getting a really good holistic view of how the app was resonating with people. So, Figma was great for getting us a visual, kind of getting the thing spun up. But Respondent and Lookback were the two kind of like back-to-back tools that like together, I would say even Otter AI was another one that we used in there to capture these conversations with people, to capture and really, because we were able to take those conversations and turn those things into copy for our story, the visuals for our story, all the features, everything that we built was based on those conversations that we had with folks. So had we not had those people along the way, had we not done discovery, had we rushed through that process, it would have been very, very difficult to not only get to where we are today, but then to also bring that back to the client and say, hey, this is what we're learning and this is what people are saying. And this isn't just, these aren't our just our ideas. These are the ideas of everybody we're talking to. And so we're able to kind of expand and grow on that. So I think, personally for me, it's seeing that there's so much we can do in Figma. There's so much we can do in Respondent. And then kind of moving on into developing the app in React Native, and then kind of moving forward, we kind of just handed off from Figma to React. React became the thing that we started to test the actual app, but we're still using Respondent. We're still using Lookback in those conversations with folks. So, and then I think probably Webflow would probably be one of those tools as well that we use that allowed us to iterate quickly on our landing pages and spin up a quiz. And we're actually pulling Webflow into the app as well in various places too.
Craig asks, how do you request for participation? Anything you offer in particular?
I guess I can take that. Yeah, just like echoing what Clint just said, we think, Respondent is key for the stuff that we're doing. So, we can target people again in the initial discovery. We actually targeted couples that had made improvements in their relationship. And that was just in the beginning because we had to figure out kind of where to ground. And then after that, we could recruit people that were just trying to work on the relationship or wanted to feel closer, but we can do all of that in Respondent. You offer them an incentive, you select what it is. It's you get to review the people. Sometimes you can definitely see what other projects are paying. Maybe it's $100 an interview. Maybe it's $20 an interview. It depends how long the call is for. And you're able to filter the people out. And so you have a qualifying survey, and you get to ask a couple questions that can disqualify them. You get to review the people. Respondent is an amazing platform, and that leads into, either we're doing Zoom recording calls, which go to Otter for transcription, or we're doing look back sessions where we can actually get on the device and do in-app recording, both of their, of their video and audio and what they're seeing on their phone.
Yeah, and I would add that on the Respondent, for this project, for this product, it was the time that we allowed was not enough. We could have spent hours with these individuals, especially once, and these couples, because especially once we got into past that first kind of 15 minutes of kind of getting warm, kind of starting to talk to each other, kind of less nervous. Now we're going to start talking about relationships, that kind of thing. The last 30 minutes or 45 minutes, however long the session was, the last kind of big chunk of that was where we started to get into the good stuff. And we're really starting to hear how people, how their relationships are. They're opening up to us even more. We're learning more and more about how they're tackling the problems themselves, if it's through counseling or if it's through their own means of inventions and things of that nature. Some people were using board games. Some people were using email, different ways to kind of bridge the gap of communication between themselves and their significant other. So those are the things that informed us again on how we decided to build what we were going to build inside of Ditto. I personally would have loved to have spent more time with these folks along the way, but at the end of the day, you don't have all that time. You've got to move and make decisions. So I don't think all projects are like that. I think when you get into relationships, I think it's probably a little bit more unique, obviously, and it takes a little bit more time for folks to open up to you.
Yeah, and part of the reason we were able to cycle so fast is Respondent was able to give us people, pretty much same day. You put out a request, and I get 100 people to potentially hook up with, in probably same day or within 24 hours, which is really, really amazing for us to to have access to that pool of people.
Yeah.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions. So I think we can wrap it up. Maybe Ryan, do you want to share? I'm going to put a link in the chat here for next week's exploring product event with Douglas Ferguson. Ryan, do you want to just kind of share what that'll be about? Maybe Clint, you can share that on your screen. I put the link in the chat there on Zoom. I can also add it to YouTube.
Sure. Yeah, we're excited for exploring product. It's a series that we're doing. The strategy team is doing, and so we're going to be meeting with Douglas Ferguson from Voltage Control. He also wrote the book Beyond the Prototype. So amazing guy. He's going to talk to us about his agency and how he helps companies transform through innovation culture and coaching and all sorts of different stuff. That would be a great conversation. So those are going to be conversational things. We're going to be interviewing people from across a bunch of different areas. Could be venture capital, could be innovation strategy, startup CEOs, corporate innovation as well. So yeah, feel free to join us and sign up and register for that event that'll be coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we actually did have one kind of quick question from YouTube. They asked, can you share with us like a template for the whole process that you just shared? And I don't know if there's really a template, but I don't know, Ryan, your thoughts on that, like just templates, blueprints, for stuff like this when you're trying to do something brand new, right?
Yeah, I mean, Clint, I love your perspective on this, but I'd say that's a really, really hard ask because strategy and the product space it's such a large surface area. You could see all the stuff we were doing from, recruitment and customer interviews to naming, branding, to concepting, prototyping, to Webflow and like landing page. Now we have ads running through Google Analytics, and we have, look back with all these different. So we also have the stuff we're doing on in the app with the analytics side. I would say that it's less about the different tools. So all the tools are great, but it's more about the feedback loop. It's more about how fast are you interacting with your customers? Do they understand my value proposition? Do they even, do they want it is one question, but another one that we were doing with the comprehension test is like, do they even understand it in a split second? That'd be like the first thing to think about. Who are you targeting? What's the problem you're solving? How are you going to present that? How are you going to see if they really want that? How are you going to test your value proposition? All those things. I mean, there's so many questions. To me, it's about looping as fast as you can to answer those. And that can look a lot of different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do this. This is just how we chose to do it with a specific project.
Yeah, I agree. I think, there are things that we look at the project now, and there are things that where I go, hindsight's 2020. I would have maybe have done this a little bit differently or that, but it's the same process. It's just probably earlier on in the process, I might have went to talk to more counselors at the beginning, maybe, because their insights towards the end really started to shed more light on things. So we had talked to some, and the founder is actually a counselor too. So we felt good about that. But again, it's those things where you kind of learn throughout this process how to be nimble and kind of apply things. And I think like what Ryan was saying, I'll just resonate with that. It doesn't matter. Like it's really learning those fundamentals and then finding ways to get feedback as quick as possible. As a designer, for me, thinking about that is like, I want to spin up low fidelity. I want to get feedback. I want to bring in the team at the beginning. I want to hear their thoughts. I want to hear what our engineers are thinking. I want to hear what Ryan's thinking. I want to hear what our client's thinking. I want to hear, I even want to sometimes I'll test stuff with my friends. Like I want to say hey, if you had to draw this thing, what would it look like? What would the map, if you could draw on paper, whatever. I want to know kind of early on, kind of like the consensus and the thought there, so that I can kind of grab all the things that are kind of around me and kind of bring those in. And that speeds up the process, but it also just makes it tons better.
Well, great. I think I don't think we have any more questions. I think we can wrap it up. You know, if you have any questions about a project you're working on, every Wednesday on YouTube, if you subscribe, we have a live stream at 11 a.m. Central with Andrew, our CEO, and me, and we help you solve any problems you may be dealing with the project, or if you're feeling stuck, we'll help you get unstuck. You can join us on a call. We'll walk through the problem and help you solve it. So. Or if you just want to like listen to other problems that people are facing and learn together, it's a great place to do that too. So thanks again to Ryan and Clint for sharing this amazing like case study today. So much information in here. It's definitely, you know, you could do this all day. Like you could talk about this stuff all day. It would take, you know, obviously it took weeks and weeks to get all this data and to understand what worked and what didn't work and experiment and all that stuff. So it's really great that you're able to pack this up for everybody today, and we appreciate it. So thanks again to everybody also for joining us today, asking questions. And if you have any questions also after today, there's open office hours, like I said. Otherwise, you can just shoot us an email at our website at headway.io. So thanks again, and everybody take care.